Hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you guys had a great time at Pennsic. I hope I see you again next year. But I like to hear what you guys say about your first Pennsic and what have you, but it's only fair that I tell you about my first Pennsic. I was going to do this video with like a campfire. I was going to take out the portable camp uh, fire pit and throw in a log and all that. But it's been in the upper 90s all week. I'm not starting a fire in the upper 90s. No, 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 no. I turned the air conditioner off long enough to make this video and it goes back on. Nope. Yeah, that's not happening. Sorry, guys. Maybe I'll put a little, picture in picture thing here going, look, a fire. Um, but no, it's not going to happen. And again, guys, thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving comments and all that stuff. YouTube loves that stuff. And like I said, I do these videos to keep myself sane as much as anything else, so I appreciate it. Anyway, my first Pennsic. My first Pennsic was 30 years ago. Literally, this would have been Pennsic 52 if we didn't have the plague. And my first Pennsic was Pennsic 22. Okay, Pennsic 22. I was new to the SCA. Now, I wasn't new to fencing and I wasn't new to medieval stuff. I started with the MSR while I was in high school. But I'd only just recently found the SCA and had been playing for a little bit. Of course, you hear about Pennsic. You're new, but you're in the East Kingdom. You're going to hear about Pennsic. We're a war kingdom. It's all about Pennsic. And so I heard about it. But I live in the Crown Province of Utgard, the canton of the Great White Way, which is Manhattan, by the way. Manhattan Island, 13 miles long, 4 miles wide. Nobody has a car, including me. So the idea of getting to Western Pennsylvania is not going to happen. So, people are going to go to Pennsic. Okay, no big deal. I'm not going to be able to. Maybe someday I'll get to go. But it's not really heavy on the radar. Everyone else has gone to Pennsic. I'm home. And back then, Pennsic was a weird long weekend with extra days involved. So when you got to Pennsic, you paid for the last weekend of war, which was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We could stay till Monday. Every day, in addition to that, you paid an extra camp fee. The war itself was a week long. There was a land grab, but there was literally nothing going on between the start of land grab and start of war. It took several years before the food merchants were allowed to open on like Wednesday of what we now call Peace Week. So for a long time, there was nothing. So that's how you paid for your Pennsic, was the last weekend and then additional days. Well, everybody's already gone. And, a couple of us who can't make it obviously weren't there. When I get a phone call, my friend Devore calls me and says, hey, my professor moved my final up. I took it early. I'm going. Grab your stuff. She grabbed her mom's car, a Saab. Was it a Saab? Yeah. And she shows up, picks me up. So I jump in the car. She's already picked up Dieter. I am using mundane names and SCA names because this was 30 years ago. I'm doing my best to remember it. So she picks up Dieter and then picks me up. And we got one more to pick up. We're going to pick up Ben, who lives on 125th Street in Manhattan. So picks us up. I throw my fencing gear and my tent in the car, jump in the car. We get to 125th Street. We get to 125th Street and get Ben in the car at midnight. Timing is everything. At midnight, he gets in the car. He also is able to go because his professors had changed his final schedule, and he was able to go. Meanwhile, Dieter was part of the National Guard at the time and had been sandbagging the Mississippi because of a flood, and he got done with that early and got shipped back home. So the four of us who were not going to make it to Pennsic are now going to Pennsic for like the end weekend. So we're all in the car. Get in the car. We're driving. For those of you who don't know New York City, the George Washington Bridge leaves from the northern part of Manhattan Island, goes into New Jersey, and basically dumps you on Route 80. Route 80 is the route you take across Pennsylvania, but it has to go through New Jersey first. So we are going through New Jersey. Halfway through New Jersey, DeVore goes, listen, after we get into Pennsylvania, we can't use the car phone. Yeah, it dates the story, doesn't it? We can't use the car phone because then my mom will know we didn't go to upstate New York. So what I'm figuring is she stole her mom's car. This is good. And so we're in New Jersey. We're driving through Jersey. I think we're about to get into Pennsylvania. She is dead tired because of the schedule with finals and stuff like that. Ben's already asleep. And I don't have a driver's license. So she's not doing so good. So her and Dieter pull a Chinese fire drill, jump in, and Dieter's now driving. She's sitting there trying to get comfortable and goes, oh, damn, I forgot my pillow. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, pillow, sleeping bag, blanket, something. Remember I threw my fencing gear and my tent in the car? That's literally all I threw in the car. I had a poofy shirt that goes over my fencing gear, a pair of baggy pants, and what was on me, and a couple of foils and epes. That's it. That's all I had. Too late now. We're in Pennsylvania. I'm young. I'll survive. I can sleep on the ground. No problem. Yeah. So, on to Route 80 into Pennsylvania when there is this tandem tractor trailer in front of us. And a tandem tractor trailer is one truck with a trailer and another trailer attached behind it. And they're usually empty. They don't fill these things. But we're behind it and we're watching it go. And all of a sudden the trailers start doing this. Doom, doom, doom. And they're rocking really hard and out of sync with each other. And it's really scary. I'm like, dude, pass him or stop because I don't want him landing on us. So Dieter floors it and never took his foot off the gas. So now we're cruising down Route 80 at a really good clip. I'm like, and he's like, hey, how fast do you think we're going? Devore's asleep. She doesn't see this. I'm like, well, legal speed limit's 55. I know we're past that. 75? 80? He's like, guess again. So I look over his shoulder and we're doing 120. Yep. But also back then, a good deal of the stretch of Route 80 was an empty road with random tractor trailers and not much else. There's a good section of Route 80 where you don't get any radio reception, like there's no radio stations. So there you go. There's one radio station. If you hit scan, you find some guy in the woods reading Bible passages. You hit scan, it'll go all the way through the cycle and back to that same dude reading Bible passages. I think he has like a transmitter in the woods someplace and like pedals a bicycle to power it or whatever. I don't know how he does it, but yeah, you're nowhere land at that point. So we're cruising along. We get Route 80 to it goes Route 80 to 79 to 422, and that's how you get to Pennsic along Route 80. But we get to 79 and basically hangs a right. If you look at a map, that's the wrong direction. So now we're cruising up 79 north and realize we're heading towards Erie. This isn't right. Check the pike staff. Oh, we need directions because none of us have been here before. Okay, no, we're going the wrong way. Find a place to U-turn because 79 is not like easy to get a U-turn. Get a U-turn, head back. We roll into Troll. The sun's up. It's 6 a.m. We left 125th Street in Manhattan at midnight. We made a wrong turn on a major highway that we had to make a U-turn on. and still did it in 6 hours. Young and stupid. Yay. So, get there, set up my tent, troll in, set up my tent, meet a bunch of my friends. I'm like, okay, cool. One of my friends says, hey, I'm going out to the battlefield. Can you take a picture of me? Can you take pictures of me? Now, I had the disposable cameras. Oh, sure. I got lost on the way to the battlefield. No idea where the hell it was. Ended up taking pictures in camp. If I can find them, I'll put them up here. But I came to fence. So I do find my way the next day to the fencing list. I get there. My goal is to do some authorizations. I'm already authorized single rapier, but I want to authorize buckler and I want to authorize dagger. The people who have been teaching me are like, just take the test. You're good. You know what you're doing. You're going to pass. You just have to find another marshal to do it. But the one person was Don Alvaro and it was Don Alvaro because of the courting system. I don't think he ever became an ogre. But he was teaching a class on dagger. And so I'll take the dagger class. He's like, you already know it all. I already taught it to you. I was like, yeah, but count it as a warm-up. Count it as a warm-up. So I go there. And at one point, we're doing dagger fights. And I'm having a dagger fight with somebody from the Mid-Realm. The Mid-Realm had no fencing program yet. This was part of them trying to get fencing in the Mid-Realm. And I'm fencing a Mid-Realmer when he decides to go through my parry to stab me. Problem is, the parry was with my hand, and he came through my parry, driving my fingers into my hand. I drop my dagger. They're like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, no. I grab the Velcro on my glove, because they're modern fencing gloves, unvelcro it, pull the glove off, and as I pull the glove off, I feel the fingers immediately start swelling. As the leather pulls off the fingers, that's what's holding the swelling back, and they just start pumping. The guy who hit me runs off. And everyone else is around me like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? I was like, well, this is what just happened. And, oh, it hurts. The guy who ran off comes back. Not a villain. Comes back with somebody else in tow. A friend of his, who is a orthopedic surgeon and doctor and stuff. Comes up and he goes, okay, let me look. He goes, oh, that hurts. Yep, that one hurts. Yep, that one's broken. He's like, by the way, and yanks it back into place. When the world stopped looking all white and fuzzy, they send me to the Kyurgens Point. One of several trips to Kyurgens for this war. Get to Kyurgens Point, and they're like, yeah, you probably should see someone about that. I was like, well, I just saw someone about that. It's like, yeah, when you get home. And they tape the two fingers together. Because the one's not broken, it's just swelling real bad because it just got jacked also. But the other one kind of needs help. Like, you may want to take like an aspirin or a Tylenol or something. It's like, you got any? It's right there. I was like, can you pass it to me? Because it's on the other side of the table and I'm kind of stuck here. They're like, no. Legally, they can't hand out medication, so I reach over, grab it, and take a couple of Tylenol. By the way, Tylenol doesn't really work well on me anyway, so I was taking it for no damn good reason. I didn't know this at the time, but now, hindsight, I know I'm not good with Tylenol. So, this has ruined my war. I am done. I came here to fence. I came here to authorize. My hand is busted. I can't put the glove back on because my fingers are taped together. Even if I could stick the swollen fingers back in the glove, I can't. I'm a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle now. And so I get out there, and they're like, okay, we'll try to authorize you buckler. They stick my hand in the back of my buckler. None of this is legal at this point, guys. I don't have a glove on. Technically not legal. I'm going to fight buckler. So I do my authorization. The marshal I am fighting says they're not particularly fond of rigid. They don't like bucklers. They're going to use the scabbard of their sword as their rigid parry. Okay. They then proceed to hit me, not once, not twice, but 3 times with their scabbard behind my buckler in the wrist, and then failed me for having bad footwork. For those of you who don't know, at this point I've had 2 Olympic fencing coaches and have spent more time doing footwork than anyone you've probably ever met outside of an Olympic competitor. So this didn't sit well with me. It's like, wait, but you're authorized and you hit me with your stick. Anyway, didn't get authorized. Went to do a few more fights, but then tore my one pair of pants. I'm now not legally armored in more than one place. So I'm done. I'm also not sweating at this point. And I know this is not good. But it gets worse. So, not sweating. I need to be walked back to camp. I get walked back to camp. Okay, I'm good. I tried to drink some. Meh. Not alcohol. I don't drink alcohol at all at this point. Absolutely nothing. So, get something to drink. Get something to snack on. Not a lot because I brought a tent and some fencing gear. Not feeling good. The heat's already gotten me. I'm done. Take my stuff off. I'm not feeling good. Not feeling good about how everything went down. Go in my tent to take a nap. Evening rolls around. A friend of mine comes over to the tent to talk to me. He wants to form a household. I realize he wants to form a household because he wants a reason to hang out with his girlfriend, who I think they knew they were already breaking up. So Richard and his girlfriend Jen and another couple of people, he wanted to form a household. So he wants to talk to me. Meanwhile, I'm in the tent now. I'm physically convulsing. I have stomach cramps. I have a weird headache. I am physically shaking. He knocks on the tent. I'm like, yeah. He starts talking to me. I open up the tent and go to get out of the tent. He's so enwrapped in his conversation that he starts the conversation and walks towards the fire. And he's having his conversation by himself because I'm still physically not quite capable of getting out of my tent. He gets almost to the fire, asking a question, realizes I'm not behind him, turns around, sees me not capable of standing up, comes back to me, says, "What's up?" And I'm just not quite coherent at this point. He runs over and gets, and I'm going to try to remember these names. This is 30 years ago. I think it was Logan from House Delandris. It was a member of House Delandris, big guy, who proceeds to come over with him and vaguely pick me up, drag me to the fire. I am shaking. I am not speaking in complete sentences. I'm in bad shape. And I'm just cold. So Logan, I think it's Logan, I may be wrong, puts a little airplane blanket over me, like one of those ones you get when you're on an airplane, like, so you don't mess with your neighbors, but you still have a blanket. Puts one of those on me, doesn't help. Proceeds to pick me up in the lawn chair I'm sitting in and put me in the fire pit. Now, the Oostgaard fire pit at the time was the largest fire pit at Pennsic because the Coopers used to burn tractor trailers there during the off season and then rake up all the metal bits. So the actual usable fire pit was 50 feet long. They didn't use it that way, but it was a very large fire pit. So they picked me up and put me in the fire pit. Now, hindsight being 20/20, that little blanket was probably not wool, and that lawn chair certainly wasn't wool. So a lot of polyester going on there, but I didn't light on fire, so the story is at least that much better. But I'm shaking bad. They're like, "We gotta get him to the Kyrogens." Second trip to the Kyrogens now. So they get me up. I do not remember the trip from the camp to the Kyrgyz. Now, Usgard's encampment is at the top of Horde Hill, and it's not that far a walk to the Kyrgyz. Kyrgyz are in the same place as they were back then, same place. So not that far a walk. I don't remember any of it. I remember being brought into Kyrgyz Point, and they bring me in, they put me on a stretcher, like a cot thing, and they start wrapping me in blankets. And I remember some of them were being electric blankets, but there was no place to plug them in, so they were blankets. I guess just whatever they had. And they proceed, and one of the Kyrgyz, who was actually an EMS or whatever, took my temperature. Went, nope, that's not right, and took my temperature again. And then got really quiet and left the Kyrgyz place and got help. And they came back and took my temperature again. Apparently, hypothermia is a thing, and not a good thing, let me tell you. So I'm fading in and out, and I'm watching these people panic about what's going on. And one comes up to me and says, have you been drinking? I'm like, no. It's like, did you have a drink called Strawberry Surprise? And I turned to him and said, I'm not that dumb. They're like, why? I'm like, because the first thing they're going to say is, surprise, there's no strawberries. And the Kyrgyz stopped and thought about it and went, oh. Apparently, the Kyrgyz didn't get the joke, but the guy who's like half out of it, I'm sorry, I'm a smart ass even when I'm nearly out cold. And so they still didn't know. By morning, I'm mostly fine. I'm no longer fencing. We're done with that. Can't fence. But, having been broken and nearly killed by the war so far, I'm going to do my best to have a good time. So the next day, I'm mostly fine. Richard and Jen are now going to go shopping. Now, I don't drink, but I've had one hell of a day, which is now 2 days long. And the merchants are going to close soon. Again, they closed a little later because we were open till Monday. So when things closed changed since then. But it was, merchants are going to close by noon. And we're like, okay, they want to go shopping. They've already killed a bottle of Jack Daniels between them. And they're still drinking. It's not noon yet. I don't drink. But after the 2 days I've had hanging out with drunk people, I may as well be drunk. Jen hangs on my shoulder and says, do me a favor. I have my rent in my pocket. Don't let me spend my rent. I'm like, I don't know that I should be responsible for your rent, but okay. So we go walking through the merchant area. I don't remember much of the merchant area. It's 30 years ago. Some of those merchants are still there. Some of them are not. The barn, the Cooper store, that is the Cooper store now, was just the barn. It was just an empty space where we would dance and do things in. There was nothing there. So in the end, what did they purchase that gave them infinite amounts of joy? Those little kid whistles that you put water in it, and they're shaped like a bird, and you blow in them and they chirp? They found a ceramic one of those, and it was the funniest thing these two drunks had ever seen. And so they walked around chirping at people for the rest of war, as far as I know. That was what they spent the money on. It was on a little chirpy bird whistle. Get back. I know I'm missing parts of this. I know I took pictures of people. And, then there was the fire. Being the last day of Pennsic now, Sunday, Monday we go home. A lot of people have already left site. They've already gone. People have long drives home. They leave. And they have things like leftover firewood. Now, the Coopers want you to leave it there because they will pick it up and recycle it and sell it to you again next year. And that's fine. Abandoned wood is abandoned wood. That's their property. But it doesn't mean that people don't share their wood, whether they know it or not. Baron Ian Mitchell proceeds to get in his minivan, says, "Who wants to help?" I'm like, okay. So I jump in the minivan. He has no back seats in the minivan. We drive around the Serengeti, all empty campgrounds. There's no tents left, but there are piles of wood. So we fill the back of the van with wood. We drive back to camp. Everybody unloads the van. We drive back out to the Serengeti, fill the van up with wood. And I mean to the roof with wood. Go back to the Serengeti. We're about halfway done filling the van with like the third load of wood when the Coopers come up and say, "You can't do this." We're like, "Okay, sorry about that. We were just picking up some wood from some friends, that's all." And we take that half load back to Moosegard. Sunday night, they have their eat it, drink it, burn what's left party. None of that wood survived that night. The front gates did not survive that night. Several benches did not survive that night. At one point, these fellows in Renaissance, like Italian Renaissance scientist gentleman gear came out and start talking all forsoothly. And all, we need a crucible. We need this. We need, and, we need silica. And, you mean beer bottles. Somebody came out with a helm. And we all started smashing beer bottles and putting it in the helm. They then took a 2x4 and stuck it into the fire. Earlier, somebody sacrificed their tent to the fires of Pennsic. And as they're going to put the tent on the fire, somebody said, "No, wait, the plastic bottom's bad for the environment. You can't do that. Don't burn the plastic." So out come a bunch of knives. We cut the plastic tarp off the bottom of it. Take the rest of the tent, like you do with a parachute, up and over the fire. It never touched the fire. It came down, turned into a big amorphous black stringy cloud and drifted off like some sort of anime nightmare creature. We're like, so glad we cut the plastic off. That was good for the environment. But now we have the poles left over. And they were metal shock poles or whatever. Galvanized steel. Proceed to, as they put the helmet in, they get these poles and they put them together. Then they say we need Squire conservation devices. Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. What the hell is a Squire conservation device? Oh, foot pump. Apparently one of the jobs for Squires back then was inflating your night's air mattress. And this is before the days of all these electric pump things. So the Squire conservation device was squeaky, squeaky. Those foot pumps you stamp on? That's what it was. So squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. We find two of those. We attach them to the metal poles, stick them under the helmet in the fire, and somebody stood there marching, squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. And it's acting like a bellows and blowing air into this already ridiculous fire. We're burning 4x8 sheets of plywood. We're not talking a small fire. This is also sending firestorm tornado things 30, 40 feet in the air. Squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. Now they're going to try to blow glass from the helmet. Now, there was probably still bits of foam glued inside the helmet. The labels were still on the bottles when they were thrown in there. I'm not a glass blower, but I'm going to take an idea that the level of impurities that were inside this helmet pretty much prevented the idea of blowing glass. On top of that, using galvanized steel poles in a fire to blow glass with meant that these scientists were not scientists. Because if you know, galvanized steel, when heated, lets off toxic, I think, zinc or whatever fumes. They're like, we're just going to blow out. It's okay. I did end up coming home from war with a big string of glass like this long that was super brittle and super sharp and creepy looking, but it was a souvenir for the war. We also found you can't pop Jiffy Pop on a fire that big. You can melt glass, but not Jiffy Pop. Um, and then, come Monday, the fire died down. We raked it up and cleaned it up, packed up, and went home. So I know those could have been multiple stories, but understand that this was 4 days of Pennsic. And having my hand broken and nearly dying, drunken adventures, fighting, all in 4 days. That's my first Pennsic. And realistically, that's why I do these videos, to help you with your first Pennsic and stuff, because sooner or later, everyone has one of those Pennsics, and I'd really like to help you avoid the really sharp edges of them. You're going to have a bad Pennsic maybe, but don't die. Listen, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I know this is kind of a weird video. I'm going to try to get you guys stories out here about your first Pennsics. But until then, be safe, have yourself some chocolate milk, and hey, maybe I'll see you at war.